你要將隻大笨象放入雪櫃，你第一步要做咩啊？嗱，咁題係解完啦，咁呢條題目有啲咩嘅變奏呢？喂，咁多位大家好，我係梁 Sir。今日呢，我哋就想借住一個跨課題嘅科學探究，去溫兩大個概念。第一個概念係滲透，第二個概念係分子遺傳學。咁我哋就嚟睇一睇題目咯。咁喺個實驗當中啦，咁我哋就喺呢個哺乳類動物細胞啦，就抽取咗呢個 mRNA 信使 RNA alpha 出嚟，然後就將呢個 mRNA alpha 咧就注射入去一個青蛙嘅卵細胞嗰處。然後啦，我哋最終就發現咗喺呢個青蛙卵嘅細胞嘅細胞膜上面呢，就出現咗呢個蛋白質 alpha， 就代表住呢一個 mRNA alpha 咧係能夠表現到出嚟嘅。咁 part A 咧就非常之直接嘅題目啦，就佢哋去描述一下注射咗呢個 mRNA alpha 係如何去導致到喺呢個青蛙卵嘅細胞膜上面係會出現咗蛋白質 alpha 呢？咁個因就係注射咗 mRNA alpha， 而個果呢，就係喺個細胞膜上面呈現咗呢個蛋白質 alpha 啦。咁我哋就要將個如何嘅邏輯扣連翻上嚟咯。呢個題目啦，梗係考翻我哋有關於蛋白質嘅製造啦，同埋蛋白質嘅運輸機制嘅。而呢條題目，由於我哋係要講下運輸嘛，呢個運輸就係講緊整完咗嘅蛋白質點樣可以運到去個細胞膜嗰度啊。每逢我哋講關於運輸嘅時候呢，我哋都一定要提及方向呢一件事。所以整完個蛋白質之後，唔好忘記就要將個蛋白質由邊度運送去到邊度啦。今次個目的地都唔難理解啦，就係細胞膜啦，係咪？咁呢個題目啦，我哋呢有3個主要嘅過程嘅，咁啊分別呢就係由第一步 mRNA 信使 RNA 製造多肽鏈，呢個係第一步轉譯 translation。然後啦，第二就係呢個多肽嘅鏈呢，點樣變成一個做到嘢嘅蛋白質，即係呢個蛋白質 alpha， 佢去到細胞膜，咁應該梗係要投入服務噶啦，係咪？咁佢要投入服務，應該有一個特定嘅形狀噶，所以啦就要第二步就要將呢個多肽鏈呢去接曲，跟住啦第三步就係運送個蛋白質啦，整完啫，佢仲要去到細胞膜先做到嘢噶嘛。整完之後如何去到細胞膜呢？就係呢3個步驟啦。第一步唔難理解噶啦。mRNA 就要做轉譯，喺邊度轉譯啊？喺呢個 rough endoplasmic reticulum， 又或者係個 ribosome 啦，就去製造咗呢個多肽鏈啦。咁好多同學呢，其實1、2、3、3句呢，第一句係冇得走雞嘅，佢哋通常走雞嘅呢係第二句，就係整完蛋白質就算數。佢哋忘記咗原來多肽鏈係要接曲一下，去到變成一個特定嘅形狀，先可以投入服務嘅。過往啦，咁都拍過溫書片，係有關於蛋白質嘅性質同埋構象嘅。咁啊睇下片溫下書啦。咁就算啊過到第2關，都仲未去到第3關。整完蛋白質，喂，要去細胞膜，要講方向，係咪啊？所以第3步，蛋白質 alpha 就要被運送去到細胞膜投入服務啦。咁今次差呢，其實就係差喺第2步或者第3步啊。咁可能講咗1、3就唔記得咗接下佢啦，講咗1、2又唔記得講佢去咗細胞膜啦。咁如果你答完1、2未去到第3嘅，咪即係火車未到站啦，係咪？咁其實呢個概念呢，就好似大笨象 IQ 題啊。你要將隻大笨象放入雪櫃，你第一步要做咩啊？打開個雪櫃門，你先可以將隻大笨象放入去噶嘛。然後啦，再問你，我要將隻長頸鹿放入去個雪櫃，你要點做啊？打開個雪櫃，將隻大笨象拎翻出嚟，先可以將隻長頸鹿擺翻入去噶嘛。咁其實就係大家就係硬係噏唔晒咯。咁呢個情況亦都等同於我哋講呢個體內平衡控制血糖嘅時候啦。我哋有 glucagon 高糖素。高糖素係能夠刺激到我哋嘅肝臟啦，將糖原 glycogen 就轉化成為 glucose 葡萄糖。但係咁樣啦，係未能夠提升血糖水平噶嘛。有一步好緊要嘅，你要將呢啲整咗出嚟嘅葡萄糖釋放去血液，先能夠提升翻個血糖水平噶嘛。好多同學就係咁樣，火車未到站啦，跟住去到 part B 呢。 就係呢個科學探究嘅第二個層次啦。Part A 嗰個層次咧就係話我加咗啲 mRNA alpha 入去個青蛙嘅卵細胞，然後就發現啦，咦，有款蛋白質 alpha 出現咗。然後去到第二個層次咧就係講啦，我哋將呢啲青蛙卵細胞分別去注射同等份量嘅水，不過個水入面可能係有呢個 mRNA alpha 或者係冇呢個 mRNA alpha。其實 Part B 呢一個部分嘅實驗呢，就係想去探究一下究竟呢個 protein alpha 係有咩用嘅。咁打完之後啦，我就將呢兩款嘅青蛙卵細胞呢，就擺去純水。咁純水題目唔會話俾你聽噶啦，純水就係有最高嘅 water potential， 最高嘅水勢。咁啲水自不然應該係會進入咗個青蛙卵細胞啦，係咪？咁而家啦，睇翻下面呢幅圖咯。咁啊，隨住時間過去啦，咁啊睇翻個相對體積嘅改變啦。咁呢個相對體積呢，但係點樣計出嚟噶？就係新體積除翻原有嘅體積咯。咁即係話啦，如果個細胞係脹大咗，即係新嘅體積係大一啲嘅話，即係分子大分母細嘅話呢，個數字應該係大過1嘅。你諗下啦，本身係1對1。而家就2除1、3除1、4除1，個數字係咪越嚟越大啊？所以啦，你會見得到呢幅圖呢，無論係有打到 mRNA alpha， 又或者係冇打到 mRNA alpha 呢，原來個細胞呢都係會脹大嘅，就只係佢哋脹大嘅速度啦，同埋個幅度啦唔同咁解啫。咁而家第一部分就問你啦，咁第一部分呢就叫我哋解釋啲嘢咯。就算啦，而家呢個青蛙卵細胞，我係冇打到 mRNA alpha 落去嘅，咁但係我哋將佢擺喺純水嘅時候呢，其實佢呢個細胞嘅相對體積係會增加嘅。嗱，題目講到明係增加啦，都唔係問你改變啊，所以今次你見到呢係2分嘅啫。因為如果佢問你啦，喂，究竟有咩嘅轉變，個 change 係乜嘢，就要你講埋啦。哦，原來呢個相對體積係增加咗嘅。但係今次講咗俾你聽，所以就扣翻你1分啦。咁呢個題目啦，就係非常之典型嘅滲透題目啦。要考我哋嘅就係利用數據解釋個結果啦。咁個結果呢，其實題目都俾咗你啦。你個青蛙卵細胞嘅相對體積係增加咗嘅。咁又嚟溫一溫滲透嘅思考鷹架咯。究竟嗰幾句說話點樣寫呢？第一句指出水勢嘅分別，咁啊唔難去寫啦。純水比起個青蛙卵細胞入面嘅細胞質，佢嘅水勢係為之高嘅。嗱，留意下啦，都係嗰句，就唔好咧慳皮。Pure water has a higher water potential than the frog egg-cells， 即係純粹話純水比起青蛙卵細胞有更高嘅水勢。你要留意水勢 water potential 係形容一啲溶液或者一啲液體嘅，唔能夠直接攞個細胞走去講嗰個水勢噶。所以一定要有翻 cytoplasm 或者 cell sap 呢個字啦。第二啦，就係水分子嘅正向移動究竟點樣喐啦？純水嘅水勢係比起青蛙卵細胞嘅細胞質嘅水勢為之高，所以啲水就係正向地由個純水 pure water 就去到邊度啊？去到個青蛙卵細胞個樹，透過咩過程啊？ by osmosis 滲透啦。咁所以呢兩句就搞掂咗咯。咁第3分係咩呢？過往都有教大家嘅，就係一個可能性的結果啊，例如啦，咩薯條重咗啊，薯條輕咗啊，薯條長咗啊，短咗啊，諸如此類。咁跟住第3分冇，唔使寫，因為題目講咗俾你聽啊嘛。青蛙卵細胞佢嘅相對體積係增加咗啊嘛，所以第3分我咪扣起咗你咯。有關於個思考鷹架啦，咁啊睇下片溫下書啦，睇下其他嘅實驗題目啦。好，跟住啦去到第2部分啦，咁啊表現又係較為差嘅一條咯。咁題目咧就問我哋啦，喺呢個圖入面我哋見得到啦，個青蛙卵細胞有或者冇 mRNA alpha 嘅注射呢，佢哋出到嚟個結果其實好唔同噶。無論係個體積變化嘅幅度啦，同埋個速度啦，都係好唔同嘅。佢就要我哋去推斷翻啦，究竟呢個蛋白質 alpha 喺個細胞膜上面嘅功能究竟係啲乜嘢咯？咁呢個題目啦，梗係考翻我哋全視技能啦，去利用數據去作出推論啦。咁呢條題目嘅思考鷹架係如何呢？首先你要知得到呢條題目係一個比較題，雖然呢條題目冇 compare 比較呢個字。但係其實佢想你利用數據嘅不同 去講下細胞膜上面呢個蛋白質 alpha 嘅功能。所以啦，你就要比較呢個青蛙卵細胞喺有同埋冇呢個 mRNA alpha 嘅注射底下，佢哋嗰個相對體積嘅改變。呢條係一條暗比題。咁所以啦，喺呢度呢，我哋有咩可以比較呢？我哋有兩個角度。第一就係個相對體積嘅提升嘅幅度，哇！你睇下升得幾高。第二啦，就係佢提升嘅速度啦。嗱，大家都上升噶嘛，不過邊個升得快，邊個升得慢呢？咁我哋嚟睇一睇速度先咯。由於而家 x-axis 係有一個時間嘅概念嘅，所以我哋係可以用快慢去理解。同樣都係 x 咁多嘅時間，我哋就會發現啦，有注射到 mRNA alpha 嘅青蛙卵細胞呢，佢個相對體積提升嘅速度係快過冇注射到 mRNA alpha 嘅青蛙卵細胞，又或者啦，淨係注射咗水嘅青蛙卵細胞。呢個係速度嘅問題。第二句就係講緊啦，喺 x 嘅呢個時間底下，嗱，大家都上升噶嘛，我又發現啦，有注射到 mRNA alpha 嘅青蛙卵細胞呢，佢嘅提升嘅幅度係高過冇注射到 mRNA alpha 嘅青蛙卵細胞嘅上升嘅幅度嘅。咁所以啦，上面就講 much faster， 下面就講 much higher， 一個講速度，一個講幅度咯。然後啦，揸住呢句說話，我哋就諗下啦，究竟有咩可能性嘅原因呢？就係原來呢，上面有注射到 mRNA alpha 嘅青蛙卵細胞，佢吸水吸得快啲咯。即係話啦，喺呢個細胞膜表面嘅蛋白質 alpha 佢嘅出現呢，係能夠增加咗個細胞膜對水嘅滲透性嘅。咁所以去到第三句就講佢嘅功能啦。咁同以前我哋做過某一類型嘅題目係有關於角色嘅話呢，係一樣噶。我哋見到個題目問你角色 the role， 你要講個 function 個功能。而家個情況反翻轉，我問你個功能，你要話俾我聽佢嘅角色係乜嘢。所以呢一款嘅膜蛋白嘅功能係乜嘢呢？就係一個通道蛋白 channel protein， 就俾水去過嘅。咁呢條題目啦，表現之所以差呢，其實有三個原因，每一步都可以出錯。第一步冇比較，純粹就係講一個青蛙卵細胞有打到 mRNA alpha 之後呢，喂，你睇下佢個相對體積升得好高喎，就完咗啦。你冇同到冇注射 mRNA alpha 嘅青蛙卵細胞做比較，第一分冇咗。第二，講完個比較啦，哎呀，吸水吸得咁多啦，係咪？咁究竟個原因係何在呢？咁你可能就淨係講啦，因為呢有注射到 mRNA alpha 嘅青蛙卵細胞呢，佢吸水吸得快啲啊！喂，呢個現象嚟嘅咋？你其實都係做緊比較咋嘛？有冇原因啊？你冇講到個原因啊，所以第二分又冇咗。第三分就係講完頭兩句啦，齊輯輯好靚啦，但係就冇講到點解個水嘅滲透性係增加咗呢？呢個膜蛋白有咩嘅功能，有咩嘅角色呢？就冇講到佢係通道蛋白，又或者你講咗佢係通道蛋白，但係你又唔話佢係俾水過嘅，咁即係話都係火車未到站。所以大家就留意下自己答題目嘅時候個邏輯緊唔緊致咯。好，去到第三部分啦，就要我哋解釋下數據咯。一個注射咗 mRNA 嘅青蛙卵細胞呢，我哋將佢擺純水啦。過咗 X 分鐘之後，咦？點解冇數據 no data 嘅？咁唔係應該咁樣嘅咩？喂，啱啱先講完呢個膜蛋白係通道蛋白，通道蛋白俾水過，吸多啲，吸多啲，個細胞咪越嚟越大，越嚟越大咯。但係見唔到喎，點解啊？其實呢條題目就考翻我哋有關於溶血嘅概念。溶血係咩嘅概念呢？睇翻呢一段片啦，就有關於溶血嘅實驗嘅。其實就係講緊我哋將個紅血球擺喺純水嘅情況底下，隔一陣，咦，冇晒啲紅血球嘅，唔見晒嘅，個水呢係會變咗淺紅色嘅。原因何在啊？就係因為啲紅血球爆咗啊嘛。咁點解我後尾睇唔到個體積嘅？嗱，佢唔再吸水，維持喺大約 1.4 高少少，我都叫做有數據啊，keep 住咪平線咯，係咪？ 但係而家連平線都見唔到，係沒有數據，即係冇咗體積，就係因為個細胞已經爆咗，個 cell injected with mRNA alpha have burst 已經爆裂咗，所以你已經見唔到個數據。關於溶血反應呢，咁啊睇下片溫下書咯。好，又嚟到一點出發啦。今次嘅題目呢，就由科學探究開始講起嘅。今次嘅數據就係細胞嘅相對體積啦。咁下次啦，問翻薯條長度重量咯，係咪都可以噶嘛？咁牽涉呢，就係計數啦。咁呢個計出嚟嘅比例啦，大過一等於一，細過一係咩意思呢？然後啦，就去到實驗嘅技巧啦。今次講嘅呢，就係分析數據，作出推論啦，或者要解釋一啲嘢啦，係咪？然後啦，就再問我哋有關於水勢啦，同埋分子遺傳學。正如頭先所講啦，呢個係跨課題嘅題目嚟嘅。有關於分子遺傳學，今次都問得唔係話好多。一個青蛙卵細胞注射咗 mRNA， 就梗係考翻我哋有關於 translation 轉譯嘅概念啦，點樣去整個蛋白質啦。但係蛋白質佢嘅功能同佢個構象有冇咩關係呢？咁啊睇翻呢一段片溫一溫書咯。然後啦，去到水勢都係問嗰啲嘢噶啦，濃度嘅比較啦，比較下究竟係高滲、等滲、低滲啦。咁過往都有唔同嘅題目，就係考翻滲透作用嘅。咁啊，快啲睇下片，問下書咯。再去到啦，就係細胞運輸啦。今次考嘅呢，就係滲透，亦都考埋我哋膜蛋白。膜蛋白咧係成日考嘅課題嚟㗎，所以陣間咧喺翻留言區都揾翻過往膜蛋白嘅題目睇一睇，溫一溫書咯。而題目啦，今次咧就係問動物細胞啦，青蛙卵細胞啊嘛。咁下次問植物細胞得唔得？以下嘅字咧，大家就要識得分咯。個細胞會唔會萎縮啊、巢皮啊、爆裂啊、膨脹啊、側壁分離啊、軟縮啊？咁呢啲字你識唔識得分呢？嗱，咁題啊解完啦，咁呢條題目有啲咩嘅變奏呢？咁其實嗱，呢條題目 Part A 咧係可以咁樣變下嘅。咁啊，我哋當初啦注射咗呢個 mRNA alpha 入咗去個青蛙卵細胞啦，跟住啦就發現咧喺佢個細胞膜上面就有呢個蛋白質 alpha 嘅。咁啊做完呢個實驗之後啦，咁呢個青蛙卵細胞咧就做埋呢個受精作用 fertilization 啦，然後啦容許咧佢真係變成一隻青蛙。咁啊，我想問啦，呢個長大成蛙嘅呢一隻青蛙咧，佢個身體細胞嘅細胞膜咧，會唔會出現咗呢個蛋白質 alpha 呢？同埋解釋你嘅答案。跟住去到 Part B 呢，咁我哋呢個青蛙卵細胞就有呢個 mRNA alpha 啦，咁啊導致到佢有一個蛋白質 alpha，而呢個蛋白質 alpha 呢係一個通道蛋白嚟嘅，就俾啲水去行。咁而家呢個實驗就係將呢兩款嘅細胞呢就擺喺純水啊嘛，係咪？咁而家啦，我將個題目又轉一轉咯。咁如果我哋將呢兩個嘅青蛙卵細胞有 mRNA alpha 同埋冇 mRNA alpha 嘅細胞咧，擺喺20% 嘅鹽嘅溶液，咁呢個20% 咧，我當就叫高濃度噶啦，已經係。咁出到嚟個結果會有咩唔同呢？嗱，失水就梗噶啦，係咪？失水嘅幅度啊，失水嘅速度啊，會又有啲咩嘅分別呢？咁啊，你又諗一諗啊，喺留言區留低你嘅答案，睇下你嘅 concept 清唔清？Hello student, I'm Mr.梁. So in this video, we are going to use the scientific investigation to do the revision for two chapters, two concepts. The first concept is about the osmosis, and the second concept is the molecular genetics. So let's take a look at the investigation. In an experiment, mRNA alpha was isolated from a mammalian cell and then injected into a frog egg cells. And then the expression of the mRNA alpha eventually lead to the presence of the protein alpha on the cell membrane of the frog cell. And then for part A, it's a very straightforward question. Describe how the injected mRNA alpha lead to the presence of the protein alpha on the cell membrane of the frog cell. So in this question, we have the cause, injection of the mRNA alpha, and then the effect is that the presence of the protein alpha on the cell membrane of the frog egg cells. So for the concept checking, it's checking us the concept about the protein synthesis and the transport mechanism. And when we are talking about the transportation, it involves the direction. Therefore, we need to talk about from somewhere to somewhere. And then in this question, there are 1, 2, 3, 4. And for the thinking logic, there are 3 major processes in the following flowchart. We have the mRNA, polypeptide chain, protein, and presence on the cell membrane. First step is the translation. We use the mRNA for the translation to produce the polypeptide chain. So mRNA is translated at the rough ER or rough endoplasmic reticulum or ribosome to form the polypeptide chain. Secondly, after reproduce the polypeptide chain needs to become the functional form. Therefore, the polypeptide chain will fold into protein alpha or a protein with a specific shape. So you can watch the video about the protein nature and conformation for revision. And lastly, after protein synthesis, the protein will be present on the cell membrane. Therefore, the last part is about the transport of the protein. The protein alpha formed will be transported to the cell membrane. Therefore, we need all these three steps. So why the candidates' performance are poor? Because they miss some steps. Surely, for the first step, all of you can write about it. What about the second one, folding of the polypeptide chain? Or you just simply think that for the translation is the way for the protein synthesis, and then that's why you miss the second point. And even you talk about the second point, are you aware of the location of the protein alpha? It is on the cell membrane. Therefore, some of them, they may miss the transport of the protein. Therefore, they may miss 1 mark or 2 marks to make the performance poor. And then for part B, we do another experiment. In the first part of the experiment, we inject the mRNA alpha into the frog egg cell. In fact, in this experiment, we are going to investigate what is the function of the protein alpha. So the frog cell, they receive an injection of a fixed amount of water with or without the mRNA alpha. Because after we inject the mRNA alpha, there will be the protein alpha on the cell membrane, right? So after that, these two types of frog egg cells were transferred to pure water. And then we take a look at the graph. We have the time reference, and the y-axis is the changes in the relative volumes, new volume over the original volume. So you can see that what if the new volume is bigger? So the overall number will be larger than 1. So you can see that. So you can see from these two curves, both of them show a number greater than 1. So for part 1, explain why there was an increase in the relative volume of the frog egg cell without mRNA alpha. That means we need to focus on this curve after they were transferred to pure water. This question is a very typical osmosis question, and it checks us the synoptic skills, asks us to explain the result, and the result is given an increase in the relative volume of the frog egg cells. Therefore, you will see that although we have the scaffolding, before that I teach you guys for the scaffolding for osmosis question, most likely there should be 3 marks. But why there were only 2 marks here? Because the result was already given. So for the scaffolding, first step, we need to talk about the water potential difference. Pure water has a higher water potential than that of the cytoplasm in the frog egg cell. So one reminder is that don't be lazy and just write it down. Pure water has a higher water potential than the frog egg cells. So remember that water potential, this term is used to describe the solution or describe a liquid. Therefore, pure water should have a higher water potential than a particular liquid or solution. It should be that of the cytoplasm of the frog egg cells. So don't be lazy. Second one, so what will be the net movement of the water molecules? So we know that pure water has a higher water potential than that of the cytoplasm of the frog egg cell. There should be a net movement of the water molecules from the pure water to the frog egg cells. By what? By osmosis. Across the differentially permeable membrane. Oh, what should be the last mark? It should be the possible result. For example, the relative volume of the frog egg cell increases, decreases. So maybe next time, if the question asks you that, explain why there was change in the relative volume of the frog egg cells. So for the change, you need to tell me the result. And the change is increase in the relative volume, right? And then for part 2, Based on the difference shown in the result of the two types of the frog egg cell, these two curves, and then we need to deduce the functions of the protein alpha on the cell membrane. So this question is checking out the skills to make deduction based on the result in the graph. So we need to use both of them. Because for this question actually is asking us for comparison. Although there is no such word compare in the question. So we need to compare the relative volume of the frog egg cell with and without the mRNA alpha. Because I want to know the function of the protein alpha, right? So that's why I need to do the comparison between the cell with protein alpha and the cell without protein alpha, right? So for the comparison, there are two aspects, two criteria for the comparison. First of all, is about the rate of the increase, right? Because we have the time reference, we can use the time to compare the rate of the increase in both cells. Secondly, we can compare the peak value of the relative volume number. First of all, we compare the rate. The relative volume of the frog egg cell injected with the mRNA alpha increases much faster than injected with water only or without mRNA alpha injection within the time constraint, time x. So the relative volume increases is really much faster in the frog egg cell with the mRNA alpha than that without mRNA alpha. Time point x. The relative volume of the frog egg cell with mRNA alpha is much higher than that injected with water only. Therefore, there are two dimensions for us to do the comparison. Secondly, any possible reason for the difference. So it shows that the presence of the protein alpha has an increased permeability of the membrane to water. The possible reason based on the amount of the water uptake. Thirdly, we need to deduce the function of this membrane protein. So it's just like before that, we have some question to ask about the role. And then when we are asked about the role, we need to talk about the function. So this time, we are asked about the function. Therefore, we need to talk about the role. So which type of the membrane protein have we learned? We learn about the channel protein. The protein alpha is probably a channel protein for the passage of water. So that's for the deduction based on the result. So this question, the performance is also poor. The reason is that, first of all, the students, they do not do the comparison. They just say that for the frog egg cell with the mRNA alpha, the relative volume increases. But they never compare it with the frog egg cell without mRNA alpha and then lose 1 mark. Secondly, any possible reason, we simply talk about that. Oh, so for the frog egg cell with the mRNA alpha, they can absorb water faster. So it's still the result, not the reason, right? And last but not least, deduce the role and function. For the role, for the function, they just ignore it. They never talk about the channel protein or the function of the membrane protein. Or even they talk about the channel protein, they miss the idea about for the passage of water. Because for the whole question, we put the frog egg cell in the pure water, right? Osmosis is taking place, right? So you need to talk about the water molecules. Therefore, for the passage of water is also necessary. And for part 3, suggest why no data were obtained from the frog egg cells with mRNA alpha after X minute. We expect that what if the frog egg cells with the mRNA alpha and then they have the protein alpha, which is the channel protein, for the water to undergo the osmosis and enter the frog egg cell, right? Therefore, we should expect there is a curve increasing, but we do not see this curve. What's the reason? This question is checking us the concept about the phenomenon in hemolysis. What is hemolysis? We call this experiment, we put the red blood cells in the pure water, And then maybe 10 minutes later, 30 minutes later, we observe no red blood cells in the pure water. And then we just find that the water becomes a bit pale red. So what is the reason behind that? Because all the red blood cells, they have burst. Just like in this case, all the frog egg cells with the mRNA alpha, they have burst. We cannot observe any relative volume in the graph. Imagine that, what if there is no more water going into the cell? So the curve will just keep flattened, level off, right? Maybe 1.4 something. So the idea is that we never see the curve. It means there is no volume anymore. So the reason is the cells have burst. So for the curriculum mapping, first of all, we talk about the scientific investigation. This time, we investigate the relative volume of the cells. What is the change? And maybe next time, we talk about the length, the weight of the potato cylinder, and then we need to do the calculation. And for the experimental skills, we need to do the data analysis to make deduction or to do the explanation. And then, and this question is a cross-topic question. Very good. It's talking about the water potential and the molecular genetics. So for the molecular genetics, this time, we just inject the mRNA into the cell. Surely, it's checking us the concept about the translation and the protein synthesis. So you can watch the video to do the revision about the protein function, conformation, those concepts. And then for the water potential, surely we need to compare the concentration to get the idea about the hypertonic, isotonic, hypotonic. So you can watch the video for revision as well. And then lastly, we talk about the cellular transport. In this question, we talk about the osmosis and also about the membrane protein. After you do several years of the DSE paper, you will find that membrane protein is also a hot topic. So do revision. And then for the cellular transport, this time it asks you the animal cell. Maybe next time it asks you about the plant cells. So those action verbs, those conditions, are you familiar with them? Shrink, wrinkled, burst, turgid, plasmolized, and flaccid. So after we talk about the whole question, so let's talk about the possible question variation. So for part A, after we do the injection of the mRNA alpha, and it will lead to the presence of protein alpha on the cell membrane of the frog cell. So what if after this experiment, the frog cell with the mRNA alpha, I allow it to do the fertilization, and it's also allowed to grow up fully to be a frog. So will the protein alpha be present on the somatic cells of the frog? And explain your answer. For part B, after we injecting the mRNA alpha or without the mRNA alpha injected into the frog cell, so we put the frog cell into pure water. So we know that for the mRNA alpha, it leads to the production of the protein alpha, and protein alpha is the channel protein for water passage. So after that, we do not put it in the pure water. We put them in the 20% salt solution, which is I regard it as the concentrated salt solution. So the question will be, explain the difference in the result of two types of the frog egg cells after they were transferred to the 20% salt solution. So what will be the change of the relative volume? So I can sure that all of you can say that the cells, both of them, they will lose water, right? But what about the rate of lose water and the magnitude of the losing water? So try to put your answer in the comment section to see your concept is clear or not.